Hello, welcome back to my channel where I share information and insights for small businesses that want to grow with less friction. Today, we're going to be talking about the ultimate guide to aligning teams for growth. But before we jump into the subject, I would like to ask you to please subscribe, share, comment, like this videos if you find the information useful, because this will allow you to get all of the timely information for new videos that I put out. And I put out videos regularly with important information that can help you grow your business. So now, without further ado, the guide to aligning teams for growth. So most often than not, when I speak to prospects, new clients, or just people in general, they will tell me that their teams are very aligned and that everybody's going towards the same goal and that there's really very minimal or no conflict within their teams. Now, a lot of these people, a lot of my clients have already built these really amazing cultures, and they're sometimes growing quite fast, but they're really unaware of what's brewing below the surface. When I come in to coach teams, probably 99% of the time, I see that there are some things that are not quite aligning or working really well, and that there are points of conflict that are brewing under the surface. But as business owners or just as leaders, we sometimes don't see that because we're in that environment. And also, it doesn't help that there is a power differential between the senior leadership teams and the employees. And people often don't feel comfortable coming to us and talking to us about what is bothering them, or if there is some conflict that is going on inside of the team, unless it's something very big. So what are some signs that you can look out for to see if there is some conflict amongst your team? So one of them is employee withdrawal. So employees, especially that were maybe at the beginning or previously quite active, brought up a lot of ideas, collaborated, were really engaged with the company, the brand, the ideas, the projects, and are no longer doing that, might signal a pattern that there is some sort of conflict or something that they're not happy with that is making them behave in this manner. Another very obvious sign, and this one is an outward sign, would be people who are showing emotional outbursts in a professional setting. So things like shouting, escalating sort of tones of voice or that type of thing, crying, fighting, that type of thing, or like very strong discussion in a professional setting. It's a very obvious sign that there is conflict brewing within the team, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And I'm mentioning this because even though it seems obvious, this is not the norm. I've worked with enough companies now that have built great cultures where, yes, sometimes somebody might have an outburst, once in a while because of stress or something like that. However, the way it's handled, it's very different. People will often apologize, and it's not part of sort of the cultural process. And then the last one would be the silent withdrawal, or the non-so-silent withdrawal as well. If you feel like you have big employee turnover, there is definitely conflict in your team somewhere. I mean, obviously, one or two people leaving, depending on the size of the company, is not a big deal. But if you notice that there's a trend, and if you're very surprised that somebody left, it's because there is something going on underneath the surface that you haven't yet seen. So those are some of the signs that you can look out for within your team. So I don't mean to be an alarmist. I mean, there is conflict everywhere. And that's why I call this topic sort of aligning teams and minimizing conflict, because there's always going to be a little bit of conflict. We are human beings, and there's going to be a little bit of that. But if you're able to manage that in a good way, you will be able to retain your employees. So why does this matter? So I actually had a very successful person once ask me, so why should I be kind? Why should I care about my employees? Why does this actually matter? Well, other than the fact that we want to have a good work experience and be good human beings and be very kind, this also has a big effect on the bottom line. So if your employees start leaving, that's a very big cost to you, because it costs way more to hire a new employee than to keep a current employee. And think about not just about the salary cost, think about the time that it takes to train people, the equipment, all of the actual training that they take, and all of those onboarding costs that we don't often think about and can really add up when we talk about the bottom line. And that's going to be affecting your growth. The other one is the big effect that this might have on morale and culture. So if there's lots of people who are having issues, or if there's lots of people who are leaving, especially silently leaving, this might leave other people very unsettled, and might actually prompt them to leave as well, because they might think their job is not secure, or that there is something going on that they don't know about. So there are some really real reasons why fixing these issues matter. And then the other one is productivity, which is an obvious one. So if you have people who are in conflict, or who are not feeling very comfortable where they are, well, they're not going to work as hard, probably. They're not going to be as committed, and they're not going to be as efficient. You're not going to have as much innovation because they won't be sharing ideas. So there's all of these different things that compound to make sort of the conflict a big impact in terms of growth. And sometimes when business owners are looking at growth blockers, or they want to grow more, this is not the obvious place where they start. They actually start with maybe the numbers, or they're like, we need to create a new product, or we need to get in more clients. And that's all true. You need to do all of those things. But if you're doing all of those things right, but your team is not working well, then you're going to be working twice as hard and putting a lot of effort and not getting a lot of results. So that's why this matters a lot in terms of the growth process. And again, if you do have conflict within your company, there are things that can be fixed. There are things that you can do. And to close up this video, I'm going to give you some tips as well on what you can do sort of immediately to start fixing or aligning your teams, or actually finding out if there's any conflict brewing. So one of the things that the senior leadership team can do, or business owners can actually do, is build trust and open communication and transparency with their employees. And something that works quite well is leading by example. So if you go first, if you're transparent, if you share things, and if you truly and honestly give people a feeling that they can trust you, they will trust you, and they will come to you when they have any conflict, or they're more likely to come to you when they have any conflict. So being open and leading by example is such an important thing when you're trying to align your teams. Motivating teams is also very important if we're talking about sort of the alignment piece, and making sure that everybody knows what part they're playing in the achievement of those different goals. The other thing that you can do is obviously get coaching. Most people don't know this, but if you haven't been coached before, but coaching is a confidential process. So when I go into companies, either to work with the senior leadership teams, which I often do, or with the senior leadership teams and an extension of those teams, I often hear things that nobody else hears, because I have confidentiality agreements with the companies, and people will talk about the things that are going on. And when I see trends that are happening, I'm able to identify the problems that are happening and reflect back to the senior leadership team on what is going on so they can fix it. So that's definitely one confidential way that you can do that, is hiring somebody from the outside, because most often than not, people are scared to talk to people within the same company, even if they are HR, unfortunately, just because we are human beings, and some people are distrustful by nature. So that's one of the ways in which things can help. And then the other way that coaching helps is helping people to actually be assertive enough to bring up their issues that they're having with either another person or with the senior leadership team, because sometimes it's just due to the individual person who's not confident enough to bring things up. So that can also potentially help your business. But having that transparency, having that trust, and being a senior leadership team that is actually open, it's probably the most important thing that you can do to help you deal with team conflict. So I am actually going to leave it here for today. So hopefully you got some information about how to spot the signs of team conflict, why does it matter, and how does it affect your bottom line, and some small things that you can start doing right now to align your teams and make sure that you're all going in the same direction. And this will, if you nip this one in the bud, if you actually solve this issue, if you have it, you will see your growth significantly increase as a byproduct and as a result of all of this work that you're doing. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for future content, please do leave them in the comments. I'm so happy to answer them. I answer almost all of them. And I hope to see you on the next video. And before I go, do not forget to subscribe, because I do make these videos often and you don't want to miss out. See you in the next one.